Hello and welcome once again to the video. Continuing my series looking at every Grand Prix in the 2025 Formula One World Championship. My usual routine is to list the finishing order of the 20 drivers, then the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, and then the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. And then just my thoughts on the race, purely from a fan's perspective, a long-time fan for a number of decades, since 1982 pretty much. I watched the odd race before 1982, mainly just the British Grand Prix, because my older brother was a fan back then. He soon lost interest in the 80s, but I started watching every race from 1982, the Monaco Grand Prix in 82, to be precise. So quite a long time. Okay, so let's dive in, shall we? So this Grand Prix is, what round was this one? 21, 22, 23, 24. So this must be round 21. Mustn't it? I think so. And now I'm going to put Brazil. Controversial. But I think it's bonkers that it's supposed to officially be called the São Paulo Grand Prix. Just because the city of São Paulo wants it to be called São Paulo. I don't know why. Have they got a problem with the rest of Brazil? I don't know. But anyway, it's a very big city, São Paulo. It's almost like its own little country. But it's probably got a bigger population than a lot of small countries. It's one of the biggest cities in the world, but it's still the Brazilian Grand Prix. Yes, we have Las Vegas Grand Prix and we have Miami Grand Prix, but that's because we already have a USA Grand Prix. Oh dear, you know? Anyway. So, it's Brazil. I'll tell you what, I'll cover all bases. I'll put open brackets. I'll put São Paulo. Now, am I going to spell it correctly? I think it's that, isn't it? São Paulo. Okay, just to keep people from São Paulo happy. Right. So let's start now. I don't do the sprint race. Well, I'll talk about the sprint race a bit, but I don't do the rundown from the sprint race, only from the Grand Prix. So here we go. Let's go. Norris. Now I need to make sure this is in focus. My goodness, I do, yes. Okay. Right, second. Antonelli. Verstappen. Russell. Piastri. Bearman. And then we have Lawson. And Hadjar still in focus, isn't it? It better be still in focus, otherwise I'll be a bit frustrated. Ninth was Hulkenberg. Followed by Gasly, Albon and Ocon. And then Sainz. And Alonso. Colapinto. Leclerc and Bortoleto. Okay, so championship. Norris. 390. Piastri 366. Verstappen 341. Russell 276. Leclerc, of course. It's not changed at all, is it? So Leclerc 214. 6. Hamilton, of course, still there. 148, dear me. 7th. Antonelli 122. 8 Albon. 73 Hadjar. 43. Along with Hulkenberg, who's also on 43. I'll just do a little focus check on the middle of that one there. Okay, so constructors, we have, of course, McLaren 756. Mercedes 398. Red Bull 366. Ferrari drop 362. Williams 111. Still 6th for Racing Bull. I will put the S because that's officially how it's written, but I refuse to pronounce the S because it's silly. Racing Bull. Aston Martin. Uh, 72. Haas is on 70. And of course that just leaves Sauber and Alpine. Sauber on 62. And Alpine flying low on 22. Still the most points ever by a constructor in last place in the championship. That's not much consolation though. Okay, so what did we think of that race? Well, I am not necessarily a Lando fan, but I am a fan of British drivers. I'm patriotic, is what I am. So I always want the British drivers to do well. Hold on a moment. Just having a bit of drink. Okay. So obviously I'm quite happy. The fastest lap in the Grand Prix was Albon. Let's put that in there. Norris has now won 7 races. Piastri's won 7. David Croft on Sky F1 is now correctly saying that Norris has won 7 races. After Mexico, he was saying that's Norris's 7th win, and then that was used, unfortunately, as a sound bite at the end of the Mexican Grand Prix program, and also in the build-up to the Brazilian Grand Prix. Was the soundbite that Norris won his 7th race in Mexico. An unfortunate soundbite because it was wrong, basically. He won his 6th race in Mexico. But however much I said that to the TV, it didn't change. Verstappen is on 5. Russell is on 2. Look at that, 7-7. That reminds me of Senna and Prost in 1988. In the end, Senna won that 8-7 in wins. And there were only 16 races, remember? So it was just the Italian Grand Prix that was won by Berger in his Ferrari. Ferrari won 2 at Monza. And that was because of a late retirement by Senna when he was taken out by a backmarker. Well, not necessarily the backmarker's fault, but it was an accident with the backmarker. think it was it Schlesser or was it Schneider? I can't remember, something like that. Began with an S, covering for Nigel Mansell, who had chickenpox, I think. Anyway, that's beside the point. This is very similar, 7 wins apiece for the 2 McLaren drivers. We haven't had that in a season shared between the 2 dominant drivers. We haven't seen that since 1988. I say dominant, but I mean Verstappen on 5, he's right there, isn't he? So McLaren have now won 14 races. Mercedes, of course, have won 2. Red Bull have won 5. And it makes a bit more sense now. The team that hasn't won any races, apart from 1 sprint, is at the bottom of those 4. Mercedes looking good for 2nd in the championship now that Antonelli is suddenly raking in the points. So what do we think? Let's just mention the sprint race, the accident, hitting the water. Norris hits the water in the sprint. He doesn't spin off, but I guess when Piastri hit the water, maybe was he hitting his own water and he did spin off, or was he partially hitting the water that had been disturbed by Norris? Probably a bit of both. But I mean, Norris, when Norris went through that curb and hit the water, there was no wobble, nothing. There was no, you couldn't hear any change. There was no taking his foot off the throttle or a left-right wiggle or anything like that. So maybe disturbing the water yourself is not enough to get spun. But of course he disturbed it. Antonelli didn't hit the curb, but he did get very close to the curb, of course. So where was the water that disturbed Piastri if it wasn't Piastri's own water? I think it was mostly Piastri's own water that he kicked up. Same with Hulkenberg, because he hit the curb and he spun. Piastri hit the curb and spun. Who was the other one? Colapinto hit the curb and spun. Norris hit the curb and didn't spin. Antonelli didn't hit the curb and didn't spin. So I don't know. The jury's out. I thought it was funny though after the race when Russell suggested that Norris, a bit like Super Mario Kart, had thrown a banana skin over his shoulder to catch out the cars behind. But anyway, I don't know if it's just Norris managing to control his car better. That if you spin out on water, it's 50-50. Well, if you hit water, it's 50-50 whether you spin out, basically. It's not down to skill so much. I just think it's down to just bad luck if you spin, and good luck if you don't spin. But anyway, that would have still damaged Piastri's confidence massively, spinning out there. Norris goes on to win from pole position. After Piastri had looked quite good prior to Q3, Piastri had looked very good. Normally, well, earlier in the season, it was always the other way around. Norris was always quickest throughout the weekend, and then it got to Q3, boom, Piastri would put in a quick time, and Norris would make a mistake or something, and end up 5th on the grid, and then, of course, couldn't challenge Piastri for the win. Now, he's not making those mistakes in qualifying, which is why he's winning races, because he is the faster of the 2 drivers and always has been for nearly 3 years now. So yeah, good performance. And then of course in the Grand Prix, of course Bortoleto had that big accident, didn't he, as well? God dear, how he missed Albon in the ugly Williams. Hey, I don't know how he missed. He goes to overtake Albon because of his angle and his speed. He immediately spins off, smashes into the barrier, big ball of sparks, comes flying back onto the track right in front of Albon, who's thinking, what was that? Did I just see something passing in front of my car? What was that? And then bits of Bortoleto's car, I think, gets stuck underneath Albon's car. That Williams, I do not like that colour scheme. Also, Have they made changes? They can't have made changes that severe and that late in the season, especially this season before next year. But the rear of their monocoque seemed to look a bit more sort of brick shaped. Maybe it's just the colour scheme making it look that way. But the Williams looked ugly for me, for two reasons: the colour scheme and the fact that it seemed to look like a brick. Towards the back, but anyway, I didn't like it. So yeah, that was what happened in the sprint, and then in the actual race proper. Norris held on very well, of course. He had to hold off Antonelli, who finished second in both the sprint and the Grand Prix, and I think he qualified second, certainly in the Grand Prix. Did he qualify second in the sprint? So a load of ones for Norris and a load of twos for Antonelli. Very good performance by Antonelli, my driver of the weekend, under extreme pressure in the team. I know he's signed up for next year now. I think he is, isn't he? I think he is. Under extreme pressure nonetheless, of course. Young guy. I know Verstappen was winning Grand Prix when he was younger than Antonelli. I know that. Or at least Verstappen won one race when he was younger than Antonelli, I think, didn't he? Wasn't he? 2016. Oh, he would have been about the same age, actually, 19, wouldn't he? 2016 Spanish Grand Prix. Verstappen was born early 1997, I believe. I think it was early in the year, definitely 97. So they're about the same age. Verstappen when he won his first race. And Antonelli could have easily won this race. I mean, Verstappen only won the Spanish Grand Prix in 2016 because the two Mercedes wiped each other out at the start. If Norris had crashed at some point, then Antonelli would have won the race. So, very good performance by Antonelli. So, Norris on his softs. He started on mediums in the sprint, but and then I think Antonelli was on softs, wasn't he? Antonelli, I think, was on softs. But then they had the red flag because of the big accident, or the three accidents. And that meant that the only tyres that they had warmed up to replace were the opposite compound. So therefore Norris and Piastri and Leclerc all had to change from softs to mids. Antonelli went from Norris, Piastri and Leclerc went from mids to softs. Antonelli went from softs to mids. Verstappen and Alonso were on hards, and they went to whatever it is they went to. It meant that Norris had to hold on with his soft tyres at the end of the race. But he did, under extreme pressure from Antonelli, just like in the Grand Prix. No, not just like the Grand Prix, actually. Antonelli was nowhere near Norris in the Grand Prix. But in the sprint, he was all over him. I thought Antonelli was going to get past. Right, fantastic performance by Verstappen, of course, but we tend to expect it. It's a bit like it's been a good performance by Norris, of course, all weekend. A better performance by Verstappen, of course, coming from the pit lane to finish third. Very good performance. Round of applause and all that. He had a third pit stop as well due to a puncture early on, but it did mean that he got rid of his hard tyres quicker. So it may well have been actually beneficial for him having that third pit stop, having that early pit stop for a puncture. And it only lost him about 10 seconds as well due to the virtual safety car. So he was probably quicker because he had that puncture. I don't know how slow he was going before he came in for his pit stop, but the actual pit stop on its own probably benefited him because it only lost him 10 seconds and he got rid of his hard tyres. But still, very good performance. I thought he was going to win towards the end of the race. I thought, oh my goodness, he's going to blow past the Mercedes. As soon as he got past Russell, I thought he's probably going to win. But his soft tyres were starting to fade because he had burned them up so much in just a few laps. So he couldn't even get past Antonelli in the end. But at one point I was thinking, Verstappen's going to win the race. Can't believe it. But Antonelli is my driver of the day. Norris, good dominant performance again. Verstappen, very good comeback, of course. But Antonelli and Bearman would be my drivers of the day for obvious reasons. I mean, they're two rookies, two teammates in F2 last year, two rookies. Bearman was 4th in Mexico. This time he's 6th. Great performance. And Antonelli, so much pressure. So very good performance. Now, of course, the Grand Prix started with... now, there was a restart, wasn't there? Where's there a restart? Yeah, who had the... who was it then? Why was there a restart? Anyway, I forget now why there was a safety car. Why was there a safety car? I forget now. But anyway, the restart is the important thing. And the restart from the safety car, Piastri, who had got a poor start from the actual Grand Prix, not particularly great start anyway, got a much better start. I wish I could remember the reason for the... I just can't remember. Anyway, the restart, Piastri on Antonelli. My immediate thought, and it is my lasting thought as well, with a little wobble of doubt in between, but my initial thought was that Piastri locked up, so he's partially... so I thought he's out of control. So I thought he's out of control. He's locked up. We don't know if he was out of control or not. I know some people are saying he was, some people are saying he wasn't. But anyway, it looked like he was out of control, but also Antonelli squeezed him. Piastri, see, these rules are a little woolly, because it wasn't Piastri's corner, so you could argue he should have backed out. But at the same time, you can't just move in and squash someone. And Antonelli, who had loads of room on the outside, just drifted across, took his normal line into the corner, even though he knew Piastri was there. So that's a daft thing to do. That's just asking for an accident to happen, even if the driver is not alongside enough to claim the corner. You still don't just move across on them. It's a bit like Hamilton, Verstappen, Silverstone, 2021. From what I remember, Hamilton wasn't quite far enough alongside to claim the corner, but Verstappen nevertheless knew he was there and just took his normal line into the corner. Boom, accident. But Hamilton got the penalty, just as Piastri got the penalty here. Hamilton got the penalty because officially he wasn't alongside enough. He wasn't far enough alongside to claim the corner. But no responsibility ever seems to be given for the driver that's just moving across. So because of that, and with it being on a restart, the race having just restarted, I would have said it was, pretty much a 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, basically, a racing incident. So I was surprised when the penalty came. And that's what I mean by my wobble, because I thought, oh, well, okay, they've given a penalty, so I guess 10 seconds as well. So I guess, okay, it was Piastri's fault then. He wasn't enough alongside. I was then starting to think he went for a gap that wasn't there. I was being influenced by the 10-second penalty having been given. But looking at it again, I thought, no, I went back to my original idea and thought, well, Piastri's locked up, which isn't a good look, of course. That's always going to make you look guilty if you lock up your tyres. But did he lock up because he was out of control and over-optimistic, or did he lock up because he suddenly realised Antonelli was squeezing him? There was a gap, basically. Piastri went for a gap that was there. And also, earlier on the straight, he was more alongside Antonelli, but then the gap opened up a little bit, unfortunately for Oscar. The gap opened up a bit, so then he had to then try and close that gap again. But he was initially alongside enough, but that was further down the straight. So I would say racing incident. Antonelli just moved across as if Oscar wasn't even there, but maybe Oscar shouldn't have gone. Maybe he should have realised that gap was going to close. He shouldn't have gone for it. So a 10-second penalty, blaming one driver, and to the extent of 10 seconds, that's ridiculously over the top. I don't even think it should be a 5-second. I think it should just be a racing incident. And that probably cost Piastri, 8 points? Because he would probably have been second. So it's cost him 8 points in the championship. And he's already a staggering 24 points behind, having been 34 points in front after Zandvoort. Now, all along, all season, I have been saying that I thought Norris was going to win the championship because I thought it's a long season. Eventually, his wobbles with the car are going to end. He'll get back being comfortable with the car. That will bring back his confidence again. He'll stop making mistakes in qualifying. He'll start winning races again. And that happened just before the summer break. That started to happen just before the summer break, where he won 3 out of 4 races. But Piastri was all over him in Austria, it has to be said. And, of course, had a big lead in Silverstone as well. Although Norris did close that lead down before Piastri had his penalty at Silverstone. So Norris may well still have won, regardless of the penalty at Silverstone. And Hungary, the jury's out, isn't it? You know, Norris fans say that Norris, and the team say that Norris drove a very good race to make his tyres last in Hungary. Other people say that he lucked in with the pit strategy that was afforded to him due to him getting squeezed at the first corner and dropping down the field. But anyway, but the last few races, well, and particularly the last 2 races, the last 3 races, actually, there's been no doubt that Norris is on top of Piastri. So, you know, I don't want to say I told you so, but I did tell you so. I thought, well, Norris hasn't won the championship yet, so I'm not going to say that. And I did have a wobble after Zandvoort. I did think, I remember mentioning after that Grand Prix in the video, that for the first time, I was starting to think that Oscar may well win the championship, just because of that massive loss of points in Zandvoort. I thought that's, you know, how can Lando compete with that? He can't do anything about that. So I thought that 34 points was going to knock Norris's confidence really badly and boost Oscar. But since then, Lando has finished ahead of Oscar every race. I noticed that the fastest pit stop of the season by any team all year is still Lando Norris's pit stop that was given to Oscar Piastri in Monza. 1.91 seconds, is it? Or 1.92 seconds. Still the fastest pit stop. And had they not swapped positions, that would be a bit uncomfortable. That every time we saw that stat, every time the team saw that stat, every time Norris and Piastri saw that stat about the pit stop that should have been Lando's, but Lando graciously gave it to Oscar, his championship rival, to help him in his battle with Leclerc further behind. Gave it to Oscar, and then it ended up being the fastest pit stop all year by any team. And Norris had one of the slowest by any team. Anyway, I thought it was quite interesting that that's still there. So, Bearman had a fantastic scrap, loads of overtaking. Very good performance. Russell held off Piastri extremely well, just as Antonelli held off Verstappen extremely well towards the end there. Reminiscent, of course, of Mexico, where it was Leclerc holding off Verstappen, aided by the safety car right at the end. It was Leclerc holding off Verstappen, and who was it in fourth holding off Piastri? Oh, Bearman, of course, wasn't it? So Leclerc was holding off Verstappen, and Bearman was holding off Piastri. And here it's Antonelli holding off Verstappen, and Russell holding off Piastri. Norris, Verstappen, and Piastri finishing in the same positions that they did in Mexico, with both Verstappen and Piastri right up behind the second and fourth place cars, right at the end of the Grand Prix. Exactly the same, no difference. The only difference being that this time Norris was not half a minute ahead, he was only 10 seconds ahead. Lawson and Hadjar, they had a good battle. Well, they came to blows on the last lap. Lawson led home, I think, pretty much the rest of the field, wasn't it? Maybe apart from Tsunoda. But he led home about 9 or 10 cars across the finishing line, which was exciting to see. That battle for 7th place. The talk of the town, or the talk in the town, or the gossip in the town, is that in the Racing Bull next year we could well have, well, actually I can say Racing Bulls because I'm talking about them plural now. In the Racing Bulls we will have Lawson and maybe Arvid Lindblad, the British F2 driver. So poor old Tsunoda, who rose above Lawson, replacing Lawson, and that's probably the best thing that could have possibly happened to Lawson, and the worst thing that could have happened to Tsunoda, as Tsunoda goes off the cliff. It's a bit like, but you see, you can't say no, can you? If you're offered that Red Bull drive, you can't say no to it. It's too, because it could work, you know, it might work. So why would you say no? You just don't know. It's either going to do your career well, a lot of good, or it's going to completely destroy it. Well, not completely. Lawson has survived, but only because he did 2 races. It's almost like poison, you know, if you take a small amount, you'll survive. If you do it for longer periods, you're in trouble. Now, Perez did it for a long period, but he was actually good, clearly. He was winning races. So Perez looks really good now. And of course Albon survived as well, didn't he? But he hasn't gone up into a top team, you notice. But he did survive, as did Gasly, but he hasn't gone up to a top team either. So are they just going to spend the rest of their careers towards the back? You know. But it's a bit like moths to a flame, isn't it? You know, or one of those mosquito lamps, you know. They're drawn to it, these drivers, they're drawn to the Red Bull. And as soon as they get close, psst, like that, basically, as soon as they get close to the light. And Tsunoda has gone, psst. So, yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But Tsunoda, you know, I haven't seen anything from Tsunoda in his career that says he can really do any better than the odd good result that he did for Racing Bull. So, you know, we can only have the top 20, or next year 22 drivers, supposedly the best FIA drivers, if you want to call them that, because there are some extremely good drivers in IndyCar. So we'll say FIA drivers, yeah. FIA championship drivers. They're supposed to be the best, but of course money stops that from happening a lot. Yes, yeah, Bearman had a fantastic move, didn't he? One of his great moves was on Lawson at turn 1, where he just threw the car up the inside, a little bit like, it was a little bit reminiscent of Bortoleto's sudden move in the sprint race, although that was from further back, I think, probably going faster as well. But Bearman, that was a great move, up the inside of Lawson into turn 1. And Antonelli, I would say that for the first time, he looks dangerous. We've seen him get good results, like a 3rd place in Canada, didn't he? And he had a good race in Australia as well. But we've seen him pick up some good results. But he's always looked a little bit like Thierry Boutsen, you know, just someone who picks up the odd good result every now and again, but doesn't look like a dangerous shark. But this weekend, Antonelli was hunting down Norris, and in that sprint race, was great in the qualifying, and he was great here as well, finishing comfortably ahead of Russell in both qualifying and both races. So for the first time, Antonelli looked like a winner, for me anyway. And that's really good. The Ferraris, oh dear, well, Leclerc suffered from that accident on the restart. Very unlucky. I mean, it didn't seem to be any worse a hit than Piastri, or any harder a hit than Piastri on Antonelli, but it completely wiped out Leclerc, took his tyre off, or his tyre rim or something. So very unlucky, and Hamilton was all over the place. He had an absolute shocker, all sorts of things going wrong. Knocks here and there. His own front wing got stuck under his car. He got a 5-second penalty as well for one of his knocks. The qualifying was terrible. Just a race to forget, like most races over the last 4 years. But he soldiers on. What's his favourite catchphrase? And still we rise. That's it. And still we rise. Yeah. Well, keep going, Lewis, because next year you never know. You just don't know what's going to happen next year. I mean, probably Alonso will win the championship next year, but you never know. Ferrari might come good. Right, so that's about it, really. There weren't really many. I actually stopped taking notes, I think, halfway through the race, because I was so intently watching it. But also, there wasn't a lot happening apart from Piastri nearly getting past Russell and Verstappen nearly getting past Antonelli, but they didn't actually get past. So it's difficult to, comment that much about that. But great for Norris in the championship, 24 points. Great for Mercedes as well now. Have they got that nailed in? 22 points ahead of Red Bull, ahead of the Max Bull, basically. Can Verstappen catch Norris? Well, Verstappen he's 39, wasn't he 26 points behind after USA? So just 2 races ago, he was 26 behind Norris. Not Piastri, but he was 26, I think, behind Norris. Yeah, and 40 behind Piastri, I think. And it's swapped around. He's now at 25 behind Piastri and 39 behind Norris. So he's only 1 point closer over the last 2 races. He was 40 behind Piastri 2 races ago. Now he's 39 behind Norris. And of course, there's 2 less races. There's only 3 races left and a sprint. So I still don't think Verstappen is out of it. I don't think Piastri is out of it. If Piastri wins in Vegas and Norris retires, Norris could be 30 seconds ahead of Piastri. If he retires, boom, 25 points for Piastri, 0 for Norris. So, and then suddenly Piastri leads. So anything can happen. Anything can still happen. Which is why I would say that McLaren should definitely not favour Norris. You can't. If one of their 2 drivers is still mathematically in the championship, then you have to let them race. It would be so unfair on Oscar to say, right, you've got to help Norris now, because at any moment Norris might have a retirement and Oscar wins and it gets all turned around. I mean, they were saying that after USA, they were saying, Norris is 14 points behind Piastri. Maybe they should order Norris, they should do team orders for Norris to help Piastri. Ridiculous. The very next race, Norris is leading the championship by 1 point. No, let Norris and Piastri race unless Piastri is more than 25 points behind by Abu Dhabi. Then, obviously, Piastri should help Norris. Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Oh, all the booing. What about all the booing for Norris? Dearie me. It's absolutely ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. There was loads in Mexico as well. That was put down to a lot of ill-informed Mexican fans believing Mexican press, telling them that the team were favouring Norris by getting Piastri to move over in Monza. No mention of the fact that Norris let Oscar have his preferential first pit stop in order to help him in his fight with Leclerc, on the understanding that it wouldn't lose him the position. And McLaren said, yeah, it won't. So they swapped him around, just like they swapped him around the other way around in Hungary 2024. You know, someone needs to explain these details to the Mexican crowd, and clearly maybe to the Brazilian crowd as well. Not all of them, of course. Most wouldn't be booing, and there were some Lando fans in the crowd, just like there were in Mexico. But it sounds almost like organised booing, like a group of people have got together, 100 people have got together, and a bit like when they learn a football chant or something, an aggressive football chant at a football stadium, and they're all singing exactly the same time, like a choir. And that's what it's like with the booing. It's silly. So silly. Lando's done nothing wrong to warrant it. But ever since he won his first race in Miami last year, for some reason, the crowds have been, to a certain extent, turning against him. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. Or like the video, or comment on the video, or even leave a tip at the underneath the video in the thanks button, using the thanks button. Anyway, let's see what happens in Las Vegas in 2 weeks' time. See if Oscar can bounce back. I obviously want Lando to win, but I do feel sorry for Oscar as well, because he still has this sort of unemotional look on his face all the time, like he's not distressed, but, you know, he must be. Anyway, once again, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you, goodbye.